let's go kind of, sort of. All right. Welcome to the Sober Weekly podcast, where we welcome all forms of recovery. I'm your host, Sober Faust. Some of you might know me as the cuddly guy, the weird guy, the strange guy. We'll just stop at that because I could keep on going. But today's podcast is focusing on the mindset of individuals who have been through hell. I'm talking about death, abuse, addiction, you name it. And today I have a special guest. Really special guest. This guy comes from the crack epidemic. This guy went through a 25-year marriage that ended in divorce, had a very, very, very life-threatening injury. And I just want to say thank God for crack. Thank God for airplanes. If it wasn't for those two, I wouldn't have this special guest today, who is also my sponsor. And he finds me very, very strange.
Yes, I do.
In 30 years of recovery, he said he's never met someone as strange as me. So let's find out why he says that, guys. I want to introduce Darnell.
Hello, everybody.
That voice. It's like soothing to the soul.
That's my
right?
podcast voice.
That's not his real voice.
No,
he actually has a real
voice.
high voice.
Podcast
voice. All right. So is mine like this?
No. Bring it up a little bit.
Like this?
There you go.
Okay. But man, I just want to say again, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. I've always loved to hear you talk because you have so much wisdom. And the way you say things is just like, it's worded so properly and so powerfully where it's easy to take in and actually use it and utilize it, and it works. Your approach on how to go through recovery, how to go through life situations in a healthy way.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So real quick, I just want to know when it comes to smoking crack, that was your thing, right? Crack.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier. You said you've smoked socks. I just want to, in case anybody out there that's watching this, before we get into the mindset of all the things you've been through to help other individuals, I just want to know, how the fuck did you go from smoking crack to smoking socks? In case anybody's out there
let me tell you, brother, a true crackhead will understand exactly where I'm coming from with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Once the crack is gone and everybody hits the floor, there's nothing off limits. Nothing. Everything is on limits.
Everything.
Dog hair, pet dander,
wow.
Socks, rice. I mean,
what about underwear?
Blend. Hey, man, if the underwear were white, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything white, man, is at risk.
So smoking tidy whities, right?
No doubt.
Wow.
No doubt.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a little
very scary.
More like interesting. I've smoked rice. I think meth and cocaine falls on the floor. I think it's meth. Smoke the rice. Probably smoke some toenails because I'll cut my toenails and leave it there.
Haven't tried that one, bro.
No.
Nah.
You haven't smoked toenails?
Never toenails.
But socks.
Definitely socks.
Well, for
underwear.
Underwear, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're more fucked up on that part.
I think meth heads are way more fucked up than we are. Y'all smoking toenails.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think it's more what we do on the meth that's more fucked up.
That's true.
Yeah.
Heard the stories.
Oh, yeah. I lose my mind. I end up naked. I'm in a motel room by myself.
Yeah, no. Crackheads do that too, man. We do that as well.
You guys get vegetables too?
Yeah. What kind of vegetables?
Cucumbers?
Nah, too big.
Too big?
Yeah. I'm a black man, bro. Scared of anything bigger than me.
Oh, man. I just got an image right now. Man.
Yeah, keep that to yourself, though. Please.
This is why I love my sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got a bigger... Okay, anyways. So let's talk on this. I know a lot of people in recovery that are probably going through a relationship right now where they're having issues. Mm-hmm. Maybe the divorce is going to happen, or maybe the relationship ended on bad terms, being cheated on, lied to, or maybe they're going through it now, or they will go through it. How did you not go back to using after having a 25-year relationship end in divorce? How did you not go back to those bad habits? How did you stay in that whatever mindset that you develop to not go back to that.
Let me tell you, man, it was very difficult going through. Let me back up for a minute. My divorce happened during my recovery. There was a lot of things that I did in my addiction that were forgiven by my wife, but there were some things that I did along the lines through recovery that were not so forgiving, because I guess if you know better, you should do better, you know, and those are some of the principles that I didn't practice in my relationship with my wife. I found myself still being addicted to the lifestyle, which took me in places or had me doing things that I should not have been doing as a recovered person. But again, the addiction to the drugs is just one phase of my life. The addiction to the lifestyle was actually harder to overcome than the actual addiction to the drug itself. So the bad behavior, the hanging out in strip clubs, you know what I mean, the sleeping around with different women, a lot of infidelity, you know, those things were difficult, you know. So my wife wasn't so forgiving of those things, and I was supposed to be clean and sober, you know, so.
Yeah. So like, was that something that were those, as you'd call them, defects of character that you were still acting on?
Absolutely.
Were they always there in the beginning, or were you able to kind of get past them in the beginning, but then after some time in recovery, they started to come back again?
No, actually, they never went away.
Oh.
You know, those are some things that we carry around throughout our whole life, entire lifetime. So it doesn't matter how much time you have sober or how much time you have cleaning the program. The character defects is something that's always prevalent in our lives. You know, so at some point, we are forced to look at those through the step process, you know, the 12 steps of recovery. So we have to look at those. We have to look at them in a 4th step and actually write them down. We have to share them with another human being and take them to God in the 5th step. The 6th and 7th step is when we really, you know, say this is a step to separate the men from the boys. You know, so those are the steps, man, that really have us to take a hard look at our defects of character, how they manifest themselves in our behavior, and so forth. And if you're not really willing to take a look at that, you know, it's going to stay with you. You know, it's going to stay with you. They're going to linger. You know, they don't ever truly go away. You know, so it just takes ongoing work. You know, constant work on yourself. And that was one of the things that I wasn't willing to do early in my recovery. So I paid the ultimate price for not being willing to put in the work.
Wow. So for you, how does someone go about then the 6th and 7th step the right way? Because I know, like we've talked before, and a lot of people I've heard in the rooms, the way I did it when I first went over, it was as simple like just pray on it for a couple weeks, and then we'll move on to the step 8. What is the right way to approach that so that doesn't happen to people?
Well, I think there's no really right or wrong way of approaching it. It's just a matter of being honest enough to go in and take an honest look at the behavior. The defects show themselves in our behavior. Not necessarily it's a matter of praying over them and expecting the God to remove them and they just all of a sudden disappear. We have to actually go in and see how they occur. You know, different situations bring up different defects. So we need to make sure that we are able to identify them, label them, give them names if necessary, you know, and remember who they are. You know, because they will rear their ugly heads at some point, whether you're sober or not. To be able to say, I see you coming. And those defects show up in a lot of different ways. I mean, they may come in the form of a skirt, you know, with a pair of nice shoes on with some pretty toes. You know what I mean? And that's a defect of lust. You know, so when that defects arrive at your front door, you know, you'd be able to identify that and be like, oh, I know exactly who you are. You know, buyer beware. You know, so if I choose to act on that, then that's a choice that I'm given in this program. You know, in the program of recovery, we're given choices. We got the freedom of choice. You know, so even though we give our will over to God, we still have that freedom of choice. So it's the choices that we make. But if you recognize defects and you know where they're coming from, how they show up, how they manifest themselves, then you should be able to make a better choice. You're not going to always be right. This thing is not about perfection. You know what I mean? It's about progress. So at some point through practice, and more practice, you know, we tend to learn how to make the right choices.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, I like I said, like, you've been showing me lately doing the Drop the Rock book, which I recommend anybody hasn't heard
book.
about this book
Great
to
book.
drop the rock for steps 6 and 7.
Absolutely.
I've already noticed how it's been showing in my life. Like you said, you're aware of it. You know it's there, and understanding it, and that you don't, like you said, you have a better understanding of, like, you don't just pray, all right, take it away from me, and now it's gone the next day.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily work that way.
It's more being aware of it, accepting it, and then surrendering it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, the defects manifest themselves differently in everybody's lives. There are going to be some similarities, but there's going to be some distinct differences in how you deal with fear as opposed to how I deal with fear, how you deal with lust as opposed to how I deal with lust, and how I see it and what importance it is in my life. It should have been, as a married person who was trying to raise a family, raise a kid and raise a family, that should have been more prevalent in my life, and it wasn't. So it depends on, you got to, put those things in some kind of order. It have to be in some kind of order, and it has to be what's more important at that particular time, what's more important to work on at that particular time in your life.
That's awesome. So let's get back to I want to go back on so now we know the defects, that's what's happening. That's why in your marriage it started to fall apart, because the defects of character were still there. So now once the divorce happened, you said you were how long were you single for? 6 years?
I was single for about 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Run us through that experience that you were going through in the beginning and the tools that you used so you would not use a drug or go back to alcohol. What was the tools?
Well, the tools that I use are simply the tools of the program. The tools are the tools. We're given tools, a set of tools to combat any situation that comes up and rears its ugly head in our lives. Once you're in recovery, you're in recovery. I think it was really easy to go back to basics at that point. And what I mean by go back to basics, that means you surround yourself with people that are in recovery. If you're going through a traumatic experience or traumatic situation in your life, and you surround yourself with people who use or people who don't have the tools of the program like we do, what do? They drown their sorrows. They use their joys. They drink. They drink. They drug. They hang out.
Weekends,
they
go
absolutely,
out, complain,
absolutely.
fuck some other chick, whatever it is to get out of there.
Absolutely. So what do people do that are in recovery when they go through a situation? They go to a meeting. They call their sponsor. They surround themselves with people in the program. So that's what we have to do. We have to surround ourselves with. Go back to basics and surround ourselves with the people in the fellowship. The people will love us through anything and everything. I've seen people who have lost their children in the program. Their kids have died, lost their parents, lost jobs, lost businesses. And they surrounded themselves with people in the program and built a network. And that's why a network is so important. I think a sponsorship is equally important, but I think a network is far more important and holds more significance in a recovering person's life than a sponsor does. That's a one go-to person. But if you have a network of friends, you never know who went through a similar situation if you have multiple people. So if you have a sponsor and a sponsor says, well, I'll give you an example. My sponsor during the time when I went to him for help with my marriage, he was going through a tough time with his marriage as well. So he wasn't able to help me in that situation. He was honest enough to say, hey, Darnell, man, I can't help you with this. I'm fighting my own battles with infidelity, with me and my wife not having a good moment right now in our marriage. So he directed me to someone who could, which ended up being a female. So again, by having a network and having people in my life who had networks, I was able to get that necessary help.
So basically, like the network of people is good because you have people in recovery who have been through different things.
Absolutely.
So you kind of know, like, this person's been through divorce, this person lost their child,
absolutely.
This person was abused as a kid. So you kind of know who to go to
absolutely.
for a situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If like I know you from your past, there was some abuse there.
Yeah.
You can't go to a person. A person can say, yeah, I understand, I get it, I feel empathy for you. In some cases, I feel sympathetic for you. But unless you've actually walked in my shoes and experienced what I experienced,
you won't understand.
How can you help me?
Yeah.
It's not about how can you understand me. I don't want to be understood. I want to be helped.
Helped. Okay, so understood is different than helped.
Absolutely.
So being helped is when the person, I can say, I've been through that. I know what it does to you. I know that pain.
And more importantly, I've been through it, and I remain on solid ground.
Solid ground, a positive way.
Absolutely.
I got through it on a healthy way.
Right. Yeah. If you go to someone with a similar situation and you ask and reach out for help, and they say, yeah, I went through this, but I went, stock raising, fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Through the course of doing it. Do you really want
No.
advice from that person?
No.
You want someone to say, you know what, I've been through this and I stayed serene. I kept my peace of mind. I kept, I stayed on solid ground. That's the person you want to go to for advice on that situation.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man, you're so wise.
Wasn't always wise, brother. Was not always wise.
You're
Made a
super
lot of
wise.
mistakes. Made a lot of mistakes in recovery, and they made a lot of mistakes along the way. This thing is a learning process.
Yeah.
It's just you don't just wake up all of a sudden one day and you have the answers to. You're not everybody else's problem. It's not about everybody else. You got to feed you before you feed someone else. Unless I eat, you know what I mean, and gain strength, or unless I do something and go through something and gain wisdom, how can I pass that wisdom or that strength on to someone else? You know what I mean? If I'm doing that, then I'm just talking to talk. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of, too much talk.
Too much talk.
No,
but
you
they're
gotta
not
walk
even living about it. They're not even about
Well, you got to
it.
walk this shit,
Yeah.
man. It's for real. Keep it real. You got to walk it.
That's awesome. So now we got the mindset that you had to use. You said the rooms. That's what helped you out. So anybody out there, go back to the rooms, talk to your sponsor, get with your network of people.
Right.
And it took time, obviously, right?
Absolutely. And don't forget, too, a lot of us neglect, when we come into the rooms, we neglect the fact that there's therapy, there's counseling, there's other avenues that we need to direct ourselves sometimes that may have a step outside the rooms. So I went to therapy as well. So there's a lot of different outlets that we need to go through. The rooms don't solve our problems. The fellowship doesn't solve our problems. AA doesn't solve our problems. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work that way. They don't have the answer. They don't have they have a blueprint for us to go by, but sometimes we have to defer from that blueprint and go find other help. There's some other alternatives, and that means professional help, to handle some of the situations that we go through.
So when you say professional help, you're talking about, like you said, the therapist or
Counselor.
Go to something, go to the rooms, do all that stuff, say so,
Absolutely.
but get outside help too.
Absolutely.
Get outside help. Seek whatever's going to help you in a healthy way.
And sometimes it takes getting a normal perspective, someone that not filled with recovery, just life experience. A lot of these people who go through school, they have life experience. Never been an addict before, but a lot of people have helped me along the way is never taken a drink or drink socially, or, recreational weed or whatever the case may be. I don't give a fuck what you do. You know what I mean? I just know what I can do and what I can't do. You know what I'm saying? So if you get high, if you can help me in a certain situation, then I'm gonna seek your help. I don't base my friendships and my associations anymore based on whether or not you use drugs. I don't walk up to a motherfucker and be like, man, I like what you got. I like what you're doing with your life. You smoke weed? You drink, motherfucker? No, you can't help me. No, it doesn't work that way. If you can help me, you can help me.
No, I love that because I think that's the thing a lot of us question too is, well, he's not an addict, so I know nothing he says can help me. And we kind of get into that stigma of thinking that sometimes. Right. So that's good to hear you say that is really good.
Yeah. But we're boxing ourselves in. We're putting ourselves in a box. And I refuse to live in a box. It's a big world out here, man. I don't want to live in a box. I don't want to live in the rooms. I don't want to live in AA. You know what I mean? I want to live outside of AA. I want to live outside of the rooms of recovery. That's where rubber meets the road. That's where life starts. I've met friendships, and I've had friendships all along the way of people who all walks of life. If I limit myself to just fellowship people or AA people, then I'm selling myself short. I'm cutting myself short.
Do you think that's a big thing when we see certain people that have a lot of time, but they still seem miserable? Are those probably the people who just strictly meetings, don't work on their defects, and just make that like their higher power?
If you do anything long enough, the same way, if you eat fucking spaghetti every day for the next 20 years, every time you see spaghetti, you're going to want to puke. You know what I mean? It's like, just being real. It's like, it's just, you can't do the same thing You know what I mean? They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, but you're going to fucking eat spaghetti every day for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, that's insanity. That's complete insanity. Yeah.
I love that. I love that spaghetti comparison to that.
You would, brother. You.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So now that we got that out of the way, I want to ask you these questions that I ask a lot of people too, just to see your perspective on it. So what are 3 books that you can say in your recovery that have helped you?
Wow. Well, one, I am not Donald Trump, so I don't know if I can say that or not, man. So I'm like, I do read every now and then.
You're watching this Donald Trump.
He said he doesn't read at all. Now, I would say the first book that really inspired me was the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
Why is that? His lifestyle, what he been through, where he started and where he ended up, is a true testament of a man's persevering through all sorts of stuff. I mean, he had not only the racial issues of his time to deal with, he also had the criminal, he also had the drug and the substance abuse. He had it all. He was a womanizer, you know what I mean? And for him to turn his life around and become one of the most powerful leaders, I'm not going to just say black leaders, one of the most powerful leaders of our time, you know what I mean? That's powerful, very, very powerful. And what he had to go through and endure, you know, and then to be turned on after doing all the good work that he did and still gave his life for what he believed in, you know, like they say, by any means necessary. He did what he had to do by any means necessary. And that's power. That's powerful stuff right there. Wow. So that's probably my favorite book of all time. Plus, Denzel played a hell of a role playing Malcolm X in X, the Spike Lee joint. But I would say my second book is a book I read called, oh God, what is it called? I just drew a blank, brother. I just drew a blank.
Wait a minute.
I want to rock right now.
I want to rock right now. That's going to be our song when it gets a little awkward and you can't talk. Just in case people are watching.
Okay, let me go to my third. Let me go to my third book. My third book. My third book would definitely be the AA Big Book.
AA Big Book.
Yeah. And the AA Big Book gave me a blueprint for how I should live my life. So I have a lot of utmost admiration, respect for Bill Wilson and the people who wrote, you know, the AA's literature in the Big Book, because it tells me not only some of my favorite chapters in that book is how it works, 60 to 63. It tells us who we are, selfish, self-centered, egocentric, that we are self-indulged, into instant gratification, no matter who it hurts. We'll walk on anyone and anybody, or walk over anyone and anybody, including the people that love us the most, to get what we want, which is instant gratification, which at the end of the day is the drugs and alcohol. This substance is what we're going for. So 60 to 63 tells us just who we are. 85 to 88 tells us the solution. It tells us what to do about that. You know, just like one of my favorite passages in the AA Big Book is the pause. You know, I take that pause whenever I'm in doubt, whenever I'm a little confused or frustrated. I pause and ask for the right thought or action. So what that tells me is that before I open my mouth, before I make a decision, before I do something, I believe that there's a self and there's the true self. You know, and all my life I've been listening to the self. You know, the self has been directing my life. So self is the kind of person that if you stepped on my toe, the self is like, man, fuck is wrong with you? You know, you got a problem, dude? You know, that's self. That's his reaction. That's his response to almost everything. It's the wrong response. The true self is the person that's like, it doesn't matter if you stepped on my toe or not. You know, it's like, hey, how you doing, brother? You know, it's like, man, you all right today? You know, you cool? You know, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the next human being. I'm concerned about my people. I'm concerned about, you know, just people and humanity. You know, that's true self. So before I allow the self to speak out and speak out wrong, I need to make sure I check his ass. And the only way I check him is through that pause. And sometimes the pause take longer than others. You know, some people do some pretty weird shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So sometimes I have to do
Yeah.
that long pause, you know, but I have to make that pause before I respond, before I react, you know, because if I do it under self, it's typically the wrong one. You know, my true self is loving, man. I love people. You know, since I've been in California, coming from Washington, D.C., man, I've met so many beautiful people that, man, it blows me away. I'm truly been blessed, you know, because I came 3,000 miles from home and I knew no one. And I know people like you and Miggs Whiskey, you know what I mean, and Anthony and some of those guys, man, it's like just, they're family. You guys are family. You're not just friends anymore. You're not just co-workers. You're actually my family, you know, so it's a beautiful thing.
No, I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah. You've literally been such like a big impact on my life. That's
Thank
me
you,
being
man.
honest. So you're fucked because you're stuck with me. I'm being serious.
That's all right, man. That's all right. That's all right. I got to read some more shit in the book, man, and prepare for you, man. I'm serious.
Now, well, how about this? You asked me a question. What do you want to know about me?
Ah, man. You know what? I learned a lot about you, man, over the time that I've known you. You know, the one thing that your sense of humor, you know, it's contagious. You know what I mean? It's like you have something that, you know, say everybody has something that you should want. You know, be positive. And your sense of humor, man, is something that I want, man. You have a great sense of humor. I've never seen you angry. I've never seen you mad. I've never seen you upset about anything. And that's truly, man, a gift. I mean, how do you do that? How do you manage to stay cool, calm, laugh, funny through all situations?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I think it has to do a lot with, I know how it feels to be so negative all the time and hurtful, like me being honest, being insecure and hurtful, and that I just feel like if I show that and be that, then it's just going to continue to grow. So I have to stay positive all the time. Life's not too serious. Something I've heard, life is not serious. It's not. It's not. This is who I am, what I like to do, just be fun and energetic. And I have these goals and dreams that I want to do. So anytime I see people, I have to love everybody, just be happy.
Absolutely.
Embrace them. What are they good at? Embrace them on that. So I just keep that positive mindset all the time, because if I don't keep that positive mindset, I know where I'm going to end up. And thinking on the past, dwelling on the past, playing victim. Yeah. And I can't do that, because if I go back to that victim card, I go back to my addiction, I go back to wanting to hurt myself, and I know where that's going to end up.
Absolutely.
So I just continue to do that, you know? Continue to do that. Meditate, run, read books, don't watch TV.
Yeah.
I don't watch pornography. I don't watch the news. I mean, I just constantly feed myself with positivity. Yeah. And that positivity that I feed starts to become my language.
Absolutely.
I'm just repeating stuff off of books and stuff.
I like that.
But it's,
we talk about that all the time, man. Acting as if. That's some of the things that we're working on right now with the 6 and 7 step. It talks about acting as if. If you want to be pleasant, if you want to be nice, if you want to be a good father, if you want to be a good husband, act as if. You know what I mean? Eventually, if you act as if long enough, you'll become. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. We're people of habit, man, and it takes repetition sometimes to build habit. So you have to do something over and over and over again, you know, if you want change. Absolutely.
Yeah. My next question. You ready for this?
Fire away.
What is the weirdest thing you've done in your addiction?
Oh shit! Man.
We all just a heads up, everyone. This guy is a crackhead.
I mean, how freaky you want me to get with this, bro? Because I can get real. I can get down and dirty. I
want to hear it freaky. I mean,
you want to hear freaky?
Yeah, I want to hear freaky, man.
Skin crawling freaky, or just normal freaky?
Let's freak some people out, because there's a lot of people out there have done freaky shit and they're ashamed of it. Let's let them know that they're not alone on that.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's deep, bro. You know, I don't even know if I want to really go there.
And we can go there.
I mean, where does this podcast go to? I mean, I want to make sure my mama don't hear this shit.
Just tell her don't type in your name on YouTube. Just don't type in my name on the internet, because you may find this podcast.
Yeah. I can tell you this, man. Through my addiction carried me some places that I wish I never had gone. You know, it took me to some lows, some very, very, you know, extreme lows. I want to say what the freakiest thing I did. I say that. Let me tell you the most scary thing that ever happened to me. Okay. I thought when I got stabbed, that was probably a thing that would change me, or when I got shot. You know, I thought that was in the streets of D.C., man, and people were after my life. I thought that was like one of the most scary things, and that was scared, like sort of like scared straight. You know what I mean? That was straightening me out, and it actually had an adverse effect. You know, it actually made me want to do more of craziness out there on the street. But it wasn't until I was at home one day and I heard a bang on the door, and my mom came to the door and she was talking really loud to some people on the street. And I was hiding in the basement because I was hiding from these guys. And when I came and looked out of the basement window, the guys had gotten out the car and they had modified cocktails. Oh, shit. And they were threatening to burn my mother's house down and kill my parents, man, and hurt my family if I wouldn't come out the house. But she wouldn't give me up, you know. So I went out the back and went through an alley and actually got away. But the fear of bringing that element to my fucking front door was horrifying, you know. It wasn't enough to set me straight in the beginning, but it was enough to send me to rehab. And I think I didn't go to rehab because of the situation. I went to rehab out of fear. I had to get off the streets. They were going to put me to sleep if I hadn't gotten off the streets. So that's what drove me into rehab. That trip into rehab helped me to find recovery, is what it did. So it all worked for the greater good. I didn't go there to get clean. I went there to hide. But in the process of hiding, I found recovery and I found a new way of life. Now, I made some other bumps and bruises along the way because it wasn't my last treatment. But it was my introduction to the program. And I think that's probably one of the craziest things. I mean, it might not be freaky as, you know.
No, that's good though.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say something too, but I don't got nothing like that. Mine's just straight up weird. Mine's just straight up weird. I end up, let's just say, I end up going to work with a bunch of dildos in my car.
No, bro, that's
some weird shit.
I can't even compare. I can't even get on your level right now.
Yeah,
with that
it's
shit
real weird.
right
Weird stuff.
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
Yeah. Dildo. How many dildos?
A couple. I think it was like 4. Spent like $600 at the store, and I would take breaks and go back to my car because I was so spun out on meth.
So what were you doing with the dildos?
You could decide on that. You can let the audience decide on that.
All right, okay. Okay, I think that's all I want to know, man.
If it makes you feel any better, I tried it when I was sober because I thought that's who I was going to become. I didn't like it no more.
Thank God. Thank God.
So anybody out there that does weird stuff like that, there's people who do that. All right. Well, my last question for you before we wrap this up. For the addict that's still suffering out there, what piece of advice could you share with them?
Wow. One piece of advice.
One piece of advice.
I would say it's the one thing that we neglected to understand, and it's said in the rooms that it's the first one that fucks us up. It's not the second one, the third one. It's not the the pound of cocaine that we want to get, or the pound of whatever we want to, the special package of heroin. It's that very first shot. I don't give a fuck if it's watered down. I don't care if it's a bad hit. It's that first one that sends us all to a phenomenon of cravings. And once that phenomenon of cravings happen, there was nothing to stop that train. That train is at 100 miles an hour at that point, and you're not getting off that ride until it's over. And unfortunately, from that first one, that first one leads to the last one, and that last one can lead us to either a jail institution or death, is what they talk about in the program. And the way drugs are now, back when I was using drugs, it was just cocaine and alcohol pretty much. It was heroin on the street. People didn't fuck with heroin too much. But the way drugs are now, we're finding a lot of people, after they take that first one, that last one is death. And it's very unfortunate because a lot of, me working in recovery, a lot of young people are dying. I see people being lost from this disease weekly, monthly, and it's scary. So I would say, man, just try not to take the first one. If you can, people have accumulated time, which does not equate to recovery, but time gives you an opportunity to learn about recovery and how to recover properly. But it does take time. You got to have time removed from the drugs. And I say, if you don't take that first one and you don't take that first one every day, you accumulate fucking time. And you give yourself a chance to recover.
That's powerful. That's very powerful. I'm going to take that in. I'm trying to focus on the podcast, but I'm focusing on what you said too.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff, though.
Thank you.
That is good stuff. Well, I just want to say again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm grateful that you're able to share this wisdom with people because I know it's going to help a lot of people. And again, I'm just very grateful that you're my sponsor because you've changed my life and my view on this time that I really needed it. So I just want to say
You're welcome,
thank you
man.
for that.
Thank you. Thank you for being in my life, man. It's a two-way street, brother. It's a two-way street.
That.
Absolutely.
Oh, man. Well, thank you. Damn. Good. Okay.